We have, but thank you for your help.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll start the work session. It's 4:32. The first item on the agenda is Economic Development Advisory Committee interviews. We'll start with Nicholas.
Hello,
How are you?
doing pretty good.
All right. We've seen you up here before. So have at it. Tell us about yourself and
I've lived in Summit County since 2011. I took a job over in the Payne Building doing laundry and worked there for a number of years, and then started my own business and bought a laundromat. And I've just been kind of rolling with that for almost 10 years now. And while I've been there, right in the town core, I've seen a lot of the comings and goings and efforts of towns and individuals to kind of revitalize and get it jump started a little bit. And I've certainly taken note of that and would love to see, the best version of Dillon that we can get, particularly in the town core. That's where I've been at, and that's kind of where I think the focus should be for the town. I don't know if you guys had any direct questions or.
start on the right, Shannon.
All right, I have two questions. But I can start with one.
Have at it.
What do you see as the biggest economic opportunity and the biggest economic challenge facing our town over the next 5 years?
Our biggest benefit is just our location and what we have, our uniqueness of being on the lake and the offerings that could be kind of piggybacking all of the drive that we get from the amphitheater and from the lake. I think that's definitely our biggest, and something that I think we're struggling with is trying to find that jump start and to help get people in here and get comfortable and established. And I think that's, a problem today, and I could see it maybe being a problem in 5 years with just the red tape that we have around, and see if we can't kind of help people get in here and established.
Do number two.
Sure.
Can you describe your experience reviewing financial information and making financial decisions, and how comfortable you are interpreting budgets or financial reports?
Yeah, certainly operating business. That's pretty much the everyday ins and outs, is trying to, see where you're losing, see where you're gaining, and see where you can maximize. A lot of what I've been doing lately is trying to find a new place to operate. And so I've been really digging into a lot of the ins and outs of what the town needs from me and how that, plays into my overall budget and what I can afford, particularly dealing with banks and getting loans and doing all that. And certainly I've been pretty involved in a lot of different things happening in the town council and analyzing the budgets and seeing where, even on the bigger picture with town, kind of where money's being distributed and where things could, kind of tighten up. And I've gotten pretty comfortable with kind of reading just the town's reports and the budgets. And, I think there's one even today that you guys are going to go through. So I've gotten pretty comfortable with looking at all that stuff.
Barb?
Mine was more like a small business, since you're coming from small business background. So just what do you think as far as EDAC's role in kind of helping small businesses get to Dillon?
I really like what's been going on even with Business Club and just kind of getting people together and talking and kind of having a pool of knowledge with all of us. I think has been really helpful. I think a lot of small business around here feels like they're kind of getting looked over, and anything we could do to try to prop up and we've gone over a lot of things in those business clubs, and I know EDAC has gone further with them as far as, seeing what other towns are doing and seeing if we can't, I know a lot of the red tape can't be removed, but perhaps we can kind of give some financial incentives to help with the red tape costs. And I think a lot of those things that we're currently doing are in the right direction, and, just kind of keep redefining that.
And then I think, and as far as I understand, with your business, you also do kind of business to business, like you work with some of the other businesses that are doing housekeeping and such, if I understand that correctly,
Yeah,
from
correct.
what you've said before.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so what do you think about that as far as business? You were just saying learning from each other, but business to business assistance kind of, what do you think, could EDAC, I guess the Dillon Business Club is doing it, but where would you see that going, kind of?
Yeah, and like I said, those kind of, getting together and kind of talking almost about anything
Mhm.
is beneficial, I think, with a lot of the small business owners, but, those face-to-face meetings and, that I didn't even know existed, be like, oh, there's a cleaning company right around the corner.
Mhm.
If you guys ever needed help. And, that just came up with Dillon Amphitheater, I'm helping them out, do some laundry and such.
Mhm.
I'm not sure as far as like an official kind of branch of that.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of what you're asking. Not sure how that could be implemented, but um, again, I really like what the business club's doing and just getting people
Mhm.
together. Because like I said, there's a lot of businesses around here that aren't necessarily storefront. So if we can just kind of get a little bit more of those people out in the open, it makes it easier to realize that they're there and we can start doing business together. I think it's a great thing to keep exploring and keep doing though.
That's it for me.
Good for right now. I had a thought.
Ben?
Yeah, I was wondering, are you familiar with anything as far as the EDAC from Northwest COG, their EDD, and the things that the state would offer to help small businesses?
I haven't dived too much into that. Honestly, some of those applications are pretty lengthy and confusing even to get your head around to submit it. I haven't gotten too deep into that, no.
Okay. But would you willing to look into it and
Oh, yeah.
try to help other small businesses doing that?
Yeah, and that's, again, kind of drawn back on the business club. There's been kind of a lot of discussion of, people trying to open up and kind of the problems that they're encountering and what exactly they are. And then trying to kind of work backwards on like, all right, well, you're having trouble with your water lines, like who can we talk to try and kind of alleviate some of that cost or burden or whatever?
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I got.
Kyle?
No questions. I've just noticed you in a lot of meetings and providing public comment sometimes. And I appreciate that you're going up for this. I think it's great. Thanks.
Thanks.
So what are your thoughts on like the balance in the core? You have Waterview, you have 3 or 4 other projects, trying to surface. Obviously the business community in the cores, things moved away from the core for a while and now it's trying to come back. How do you view that balance? And, there's many viewpoints of how to get along.
Yeah. Um, I think that's a very big issue right now is trying to accommodate everyone in town and where that line actually is. Obviously, you got residents and residential areas that you're trying to balance and you don't want to overburden any of them that have already been here and established by something new. But I think there's definitely a common thread of like, we need some change, need some revitalization, whether that's through revamping existing or tearing down and redoing. I think that's kind of a known thing. It's just a matter of how you get there and trying to really bridge what people are thinking as residents and what people are wanting as business owners I think there's a pretty big gap right there, and trying to kind of let the residents know that, you know, we're not, business people aren't trying to step on anyone's toes here, but there are finances involved that have to be met. Like you can't buy a, you know, multi-million-dollar property and tear it down and put a one-story coffee shop there. And, you know, those are things that I hear from a lot of people in town, that that's what they would like, but the realities just do not match up with those wants, and trying to kind of bridge that and be like, well, we need to build it a little taller, a little bigger, but we can keep it, you know, within reason, and trying just to kind of, again, try and see if we can keep people happy on all fronts.
And what are your thoughts on you know, obviously Dillon has some pretty unique assets that contribute to financially to our tax base. And so what do you consider those to be, and what are your thoughts on those?
Well, I think the amphitheater is certainly, you know, something that we as a town invested a lot of money into, and I think that is definitely a focal point of our finances, and trying to continue to work that to be as profitable as we can be, I think is a really good place to kind of start there. But you know, also our lake is our biggest asset, you know, perhaps, and trying to figure out how we can kind of draw a little bit more in on the winter side of that. You know, it's going to be hard to compete with how beautiful and amazing it is in the summertime, but like, you know, we've done things in the past, some hockey things, and, you know, doing the loop that we've done in the last couple of years. And maybe if we can kind of focus on that and see if we can, you know, maybe get the tiki bar involved a little bit more than just summer, or do some pop-ups, and you know, all the food trucks that have been coming up, maybe we can kind of slowly let them get down there once we have events in the winter. But you know, anything to draw people into town all the way in, not just on the fringe, but then kind of have them start there and work their way back, and, you know, hopefully kind of invigorate all of town, not just one part of it or Dillon Ridge or anything, but get the whole area involved.
Other questions from council? Thank you so much, Ariel.
Hi,
How are you?
good. How are you doing?
Mhm.
Doing great. Tell
Hi,
us.
I'm Ariel Johnston. Sorry.
It's all
Shall
yours.
I?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm Ariel Johnston. I am one of the owners of Everything Colorado, located across from City Market. I also own and operate 4 businesses in the county. And so we have businesses in Dillon, Silverthorne, Frisco, and Copper. So I actually get to see a little bit of what every town is doing and see how sales and customers react across the entire county besides Breckenridge, but we don't need to even think about them. So I'm born and raised in Summit County. I've lived back here for 9 years, lived in Colorado my whole life. I moved back here to start my business in Dillon. And recently, in the past year or so, I've gotten more involved in what's going on in Dillon, mainly because of the forums that Dillon put together, and because I was intrigued by what Trace was doing and what the town of Dillon wanted to do to get people's voices involved in moving forward with the identity of the town and where they want to go. I obviously know a lot of background here. I know a lot of people here, so I've heard things that they talk about. But something that I wanted to do on my own was to kind of learn more about it and learn more about the people and what's actually going on. And yeah, so as a business owner, I have an investment in the town, but as someone that is a community member and loves this place, I also want to see how I can participate and help and be a part of it.
Start on the left this time. Kyle, questions or
No, I don't.
Ben?
Again, if you're part of the EDAC, what would you, what would you say to small business that comes to the EDAC and want to start a business in Dillon? I was just interested.
So a small business wanting to open in Dillon. Um, well, I guess I didn't know that small businesses would be coming to EDAC for that, but I like that because they're,
I would assume that EDAC would try to reach out to them if somebody was interested. If somebody came to me, I would say, well, why don't you talk to EDAC because they have the feel for the community.
yeah. Well, I know that EDAC has a lot of small business owners on it, and it has people that are very involved in understanding how to start a business and grow a business. So I would say probably come to one of those meetings or the Dillon Business Club to start and see what questions you have and like, do they need brick and mortar? Which would make the most sense if they're going to be in Dillon, and just see probably, you know, it's a mountain town, so rent prices and labor prices are going to be higher than most other places in the entire country. So wondering if you have the market for it before you invest.
Okay.
Just two things real quick. Thank you for coming to all the forums. Saw you there
Oh.
and it was great. And thanks, you were a very great participant in a lot of the ongoings that they had together. So thank you for that. Do you, and I don't mean this in a bad way by any means, but do you see that with your sister being part of the liaison team with P and Z, if you were to be on EDAC, would there be a conflict there?
I don't think that there will be a conflict. My sister and I are two very different people. I can understand if people have a weird feeling about that. So I'm fine if you guys want to take that into consideration. She is having a baby. So she's going to be out of commission for a while. And yeah, we work really well together, but we also are two very different people and we approach things in different ways. So I think Allison's more analytical and she is more, I mean, she's been on planning and zoning for a very long time. She's actually the one that has like helped me understand government a little bit better. And I'm more of like the feeler, what are people thinking and how's that going to impact everyone? So I think we offer two very different things, but I think we work well together. So
Great, thank you.
Similar question to the one before, but it was something that was posed at the Dillon Business Club to me was, why should I invest in Dillon? You know, why can EDAC give me some sort of packet? Can they tell me, you know, why should I open a business in Dillon? So what are your thoughts on that one?
well, I think as many would pose it, there seems to be a lot of opportunity here. AKA, you know, a lot of people haven't really scooped in and taken that yet. So I think if you're willing to start from more of like a foundational part, that's where Dillon has it. And I think that one of the positive aspects of Dillon is that it does have such a small community. It has a lot of heart and it has some incredible pieces to it, like the marina, like the amphitheater, the farmer's market. And it's like, I swear it's sacred. The ground is like, it just feels good to be here. So for me, I think if someone's coming here, there's opportunity here. It's unlike some of the other portions of our community where they've kind of they've already found their gold. So you're like kind of starting at like a higher cost of entry.
And, well, it's the same thing that I just was asking before. So the business to business, and I think you guys do some of that anyway. And so, can you just explain, you know, how you see EDAC and maybe the Dillon Business Club supporting, although they're two separate things, but just in general, supporting existing businesses?
Yeah, I think truly it's getting on the ground and talking to people and understanding that side of the community and seeing where they're thriving and where they need help. So I think that's why the Dillon Business Club has been so great because it's more on the ground. And then EDAC is great because it's actually, you know, a committee talking to the town council. So when honestly, I've told actually a lot of people just on the ground, you should come to Dillon Business Club because like, why should I go? It's like, well, we're trying to bring the community together, people that have a say in the community and get them talking so we can understand the pain points of everyone and the wins.
Mhm.
So I think pairing those together is where the strength comes and the fact that they're actually talking to town council and advising and helping them along the way just seems like kind of a light bulb moment for me.
Good for me. Thank you.
Shannon?
How would you balance the needs of the residents, local businesses, visitors, all of kind of, the people who come and go, and also the flora and the fauna that we have here, like kind of balancing it all when evaluating economic development initiatives?
Yeah, I think this comes down to what Trace is headed towards, and that's finding our identity. Because I think we are located, I know that we're located in a tourist town, in a tourist area, but a lot of our businesses here are service-based, which is something to look at. And we need to see if maybe that's just where we go and maybe that's who we are. Or can we integrate some of that tourism into it? Does the CMC pull into it? Like, where do we want to go and what is best for our businesses, our community, our residents, our tourists, and how does that mix together? And I think that's like the biggest question moving forward is who are we and where do we want to go? I think the biggest problem that we have is not quite here, but it's probably someone with more money coming in and buying up a lot of the real estate and taking that decision away from us. So I feel like by working together, especially with what Trace did in the community, we have the opportunity right now to create an intention and try and move forward with it for our goals in the next 5 or 10 years.
So what would you like to see
What would I like?
for us, for the town to move forward and help your business? What do you see as a vision for how
I-
things would get better?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll give you on the ground. I think that we have a great skeleton. I think we just need to connect everything more. There are sidewalks here that are absolutely amazing, but nobody uses. The other day, someone came into my shop. They were staying at the hotel across the street. And I told them to take the bus to the Dillon Farmers Market and then walk back down the sidewalk. And they came in the next day and they said they did that. But how would they know that? Because that sidewalk is not on Google Maps. And like without me physically telling them, hey, it's easy bus ride there, but harder back. But it's all downhill on the way back. Like if we had a way to connect us more and we made it more in front of our customers and our visitors, they would be like, oh my gosh. But like a lot of the times you just don't get on the ground in Dillon. And if you do, you're already at the marina and the amphitheater. It's not drawing you in. So like the bike path, I had said, let's do a ground mural of, a color that goes through the town and takes you to Scrappy's Pizza, takes you to the historic schoolhouse, takes you to Dillon Coffee Lab. So like there are places in the town that can serve the tourists, but it's just disjointed. So if you make it more of a way to go this way, go that way, then they'll do it. But you have to have it in front of them. Otherwise, they're just going to think, oh, I don't know what's in there. I'm just going to keep going.
And so you also say that your business is suffering more in Dillon than the other towns. Like what kind of percentages you relating to there?
Yes, so we opened a shop in Silverthorne, which I think is the best comparison because they're about 5 minutes away from each other. And our Dillon shop is down, I think it's about 35% year over year compared to Silverthorne. Our business is down in Dillon 60% from our top, from like the best that we've ever done. And it continues to go down. And last year and the year before that, I told myself, this is the bottom and it'll go back up, and it keeps going down. So I'm like, oof, like what is happening? So I personally have been putting a lot of marketing efforts. I've also been putting community efforts. And I think that it's a learning experience for myself as well. And I know that the town has had challenges with marketing and communication just because you have a small team. And that's something that I've also been learning and dabbling in, and something that I think I could help from like perspective. And I've been talking to a lot of marketers to get their take as well.
Any other questions from council members?
I'd like to say, I served on the town council while my wife was mayor, so I don't think having a sister that's on another committee would be any really big problem.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming before us and speaking, Ariel.
Thank you all.
Um, and I take it Kellery is not here. So any other discussion from council members before we end the topic?
Did the EDAC committee
They did not give a recommendation.
They did
from
not
what
give a
I
recommendation.
understand.
That's fine. I just wondered if they didn't. Okay.
Yeah, and I recognized, Nicholas, for many years coming here. And Ariel, you also take a big interest, both of you. So thank you for that. Okay, so we'll move on to the second agenda item, the May financial report. Heather, how are you?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Heather Pizzella. I'm the interim finance director for the town of Dillon. And in your report tonight are our May 2026 financials. So I just wanted to run through a few numbers in the report for you. So on page 1, our total revenues are currently at 50.2% of the 2026 budget. However, if you remove the developer receivable we talked about at the April financial meeting of $303,591. We're actually sitting at 46.8% of our total revenues as compared to budget for 2026. I will call out that we have received that payment now twice. And so in the footnote on a couple page, I'll go over it where it is in here, but in the footnote further in, we're actually sitting at 607,182 because we've been paid twice. This will be refunded by the end of the year, but in order to balance our financials, I have to include it in here or cash won't tie out. So we have received it twice. We've submitted a claim for refund to them. So hopefully they get at least one of those off of our books soon. We're just kind of waiting. And then we'll hold the other amount until the end of the year and then return that amount. So that's in there, and there's a footnote. So actual revenues are ahead of 2025 by 127K or 1.5%. Expenses are sitting at 47.2% of budget, and prior year at this time, our revenue was at 44.1% of the budget, and expenses were sitting at 20.8%. So if you normalize some of our tracking differences with the audit accruals that I've been talking to you guys about for a few months now, and then looking at some timing of expenses, we've had some payments that are made by May of this year that weren't made by May of prior year. And so we just have some timing differences that make our expenses look like it's drastically more than it is as compared to prior year. The audit is finalized and we've posted those reversing journal entries. So you'll see those reversed out in June financials. So that's coming up. Jesse, if you could scroll to page 2 for me, please. This page pulls out our events and marina that we've been kind of drilling in on the different revenues here. So events revenue at the end of May was 12.2% above 2025, and then concerts is 10.3% above 2025. Jesse, if you could scroll to the next page, on page 3. So here you'll see the footnote I mentioned of that $607,182 receivable that we've been talking about. And this report is our beginning ending cash balances, and by fund, you'll see each of our revenues and expenditures year to date to tie out ending cash. So our cash balances are the same from the February report, but I'd like to mention that a couple of funds changed. So the general fund, capital fund, and our marina fund cash balances changed slightly as compared to last month because of some audit entries that we posted. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of those if you kind of look back and forth at some different months, but our total cash is the same. Moving on to page 4 is our cash and investments. So this is where our cash sits and our investments as of May 31st. Not much else to mention there. And then on page 5, you'll see our budget to actuals compared to current year and prior year. And again, we have that footnote with our receivables and then calling out that we combined our water plant investment fund. So just some items to mention there. Sneak peek of May sales tax, we're actually down 3.22% or $18,000. And that puts us year to date down 2.73% or $63,000. So something we're monitoring and we'll talk to you guys about in a little bit. Our Q2 sales tax will be reported on August 18th along with June financials. So you will get kind of a full picture of our half of our year, and then our Q2 financials, sales and lodging tax will be included. Internally in the finance department, we're working on automating some processes for our financials here because this is a pretty manual process. So we're kind of working on how to automate this more and make it a smoother process. I did want to mention that we're going to come to you guys probably in the fall sometime and review our investment policies, just so that we can have a conversation about those and help provide any information you guys have about the investment policies. And then coming up, we're going to switch gears from audit and start working on the 2027 budget. Do you guys have any questions for me?
So we've been kind of down for a few years now, a little bit each year, probably closing in on maybe 10% over
Yeah.
the last 3-4 years.
Mhm.
So it's starting to be impactful.
Yes. So for 2025, we ended up down 4.4% or about 280K. So we are continuing to see just a slight decline each year. And then I would speculate this year that we continue to be down because of the current economic climate. And I think that consumers are a little weary right now. With the war overseas that's kind of come and going, we're seeing increases in gas prices. So I think we're seeing some sentiment of changes in the economy. And usually in the tourism sector up here in the mountains, we kind of see that more than like the Front Range would. Like we'll see it first and then they might see it later, because I know that the Front Range communities aren't experiencing the same kind of sales tax declines that we're noticing right now countywide.
But we're pretty consistent with other towns in our county.
Yeah.
What about on the west slope?
I don't have a full picture of that, but let me pull that and I'll get
Eagle
back to you.
County, Pitkin
Yeah, I can get information on where they're sitting right now.
Mountain towns.
Mountain.
Yeah.
Right, Barb, it's all yours.
I'm sure you don't want to ask the others. I only have a couple questions today. So yeah, talking about sales tax, we boomed like everybody else in the pandemic. And so now we're chipping our way back down. But I do think the drought and then the wildfire messaging that's gone out nationwide have affected travel to us anyway. But I think we'll see.
One
The
thing-
best economists for lodging out there are saying we may have a really strong April or August and September. So we'll see. Because there's still a great desire to travel and some fears are easing. I did have two questions and or just one thought too was in our funds, we still have the marina broken out as a fund. Carrie and I were chatting about this the other day, and it really isn't a separate fund anymore. So eventually it probably should be rolled into general. Just because you
Yeah.
guys don't manage it as a separate fund anymore, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have had a question about this giant blue graph. And so if I understand correctly, about 4.42 million is pass through for concerts. Do I have that right? Roughly?
Correct.
Okay.
So do you know that number off the?
Yeah, and actually the number that we're looking at right here is a 2025 expense that just got put back to 2025. So it's going to look very different than
It'll
next time
change
you see
next time.
this.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was stating the correct information that this is, it has to do with concert, mostly ticket pass through and it's going to be moving around.
That's correct. And Carrie's actually going to show you, we're going to look at this a little bit differently going forward. We're actually going to put the pass through up in the revenues now so that you're just seeing the in and out right next to each other instead of having them separated as revenues and expenses. And I think that's going to look a lot cleaner and easier to see
Yeah.
and read.
We worked with our auditor and talked about that it will be a contra revenue account in the financials going forward so that it doesn't look like we have this huge revenue and then a huge expense.
Mhm.
which
Yeah,
would be
and
a
I'm
lot
just
easier to read.
talking, yeah, people have looked at it online or whatever. So, and one other one was, when we say police is ahead of 2025 due to increases in wages, I think we need to like add another sentence on there that says, we started the combined Dillon Keystone Police Department and patrol started in June of 2025.
Yeah, we can add
So
a
that-
qualifier.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that would be helpful to everyone to understand.
One thing I would mention about some of our sales tax, to your point, is there was also the Wayfair versus South Dakota case where it modernized e-commerce and we started getting destination source sales tax. So when you shipped somewhere, it wasn't charging the sales tax from the ship point, it was at the customer. So the customer here in Dillon would then be paying our sales tax. And that's why you also see like a larger increase in sales tax over time.
Which is exceedingly helpful.
Yeah, yeah, it's been good. Thank you, guys.
Any other questions, Shannon?
No.
Ben?
No, I don't
Linda?
have any questions.
Kyle? So just one question, what happens with the revenues for the amphitheater? If there's not a sellout of a concert, who bears that brunt of that burden?
So the ticketed shows, most of the shows that we do are promoted by AEG or Live Nation. And so they are taking the risk on those shows. So they have a guarantee with the band, what that number is to get the band to come here. Any additional revenue, it really isn't on the town for any of those shows. What the town is doing is we're taking a flat fee on each ticket price. So we're always guaranteed our revenue, our rental, essentially a rental fee for the amphitheater. These are always co-promoted. We're not actually renting the amphitheater, but for ease of understanding, let's call it a rental fee. So we're always guaranteed our flat fee for the amphitheater that night. We're also taking a share of the ticketing, so a flat fee on each ticket. We also keep all of the bar sales, so we will never lose money on
So
a
we're
ticketed
pretty
show. That's
dependable. What we're receiving is very
absolutely.
dependable.
Yeah, it's very, very consistent and it works very well in the town's favor.
I don't have any more questions. Anyone else has questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
We will move on to agenda item 3, budget discussion. Carrie McDonald and Heather.
Mr. Mayor and Council, if I could just say something real quick. Back in May 20th, when I was asked to be the acting town manager, I presented to you 5 key elements of a strategic plan that I wanted to implement to move the town forward. That included ensuring that operational objectives for 2026 were met, critical review of the 2026 finances and budget in preparation of the 2027 budget, onboarding HR and restoring the human resource function in Dillon, hiring a financial director, and assisting council in the recruitment of a town manager. We are on step 2, and Carrie and Heather have spent the past 2 months diving really deep into our finances and our budget. And this is the culmination of 2 months of work from the 2 of them. Thank you.
It's all yours. I'm gonna grab
So
some
I-
water.
Your finance and management consultant, former finance director. I want to tell you that I haven't done this in 3 years, so I am nervous. So bear with me. I do want to thank you all for your trust in me, supporting me, and having the confidence in me to accomplish this goal. So I do appreciate that. I very much felt your support over the last couple months. So thank you very much. I want to go through, I know I sent you a lot of material. I'm going to go through it at a more high level, but I would appreciate and totally accept any questions you have, any dialogue you'd like to have along the way. So just interrupt, stop me, and we'll talk further about any topic. So let's start a little bit with, I want to talk to you a little bit about where we came from and how I accomplished what we've got in what we have in front of you, and where we're going next. So I was hired to review and tie together the audited financial statements, the monthly and quarterly financials, and the annual budget. Your goal was to ensure that there was transparency and accuracy of reporting and create processes moving forward to gain trust and confidence in the town's financial condition. That's what I think we're doing tonight. I think that's probably our maybe first step, but our final step in gaining that confidence back, I'm hoping. So the process that I undertook was first I balanced the 2025 audited financials, which Heather had done all of that work on the audited financials. But I balanced that against the accounting software and the 26 budget document that you approved back in December. We got those balanced. Then from there, working with department heads, the acting town manager, and the finance staff, we worked together and to understand the 25 actuals and to project the 26 budget numbers. There are many supplemental appropriations that are accounted for in these multiple pages. And the reasons for those supplemental appropriations, I'm going to give you some very common, the generic ones that kind of came across most funds. In some of the funds, there are additional reasons. Let's talk about the reasons why the majority of the supplementals came forward. The first one is that we want to amend the beginning fund balance for 2026 because we now have, it's July, the audit is complete, and we have the numbers moving forward for 2026, how we ended 2025. So if we amend the budget, then we have good information moving forward as to how much money we really had. So we want to amend that audit or the beginning fund balance. And in the case of the enterprise funds, it's the net position beginning of year. So just for terminology, it's the same thing. We want to, one of the other reasons for the supplementals is that because we're in July, we have a great opportunity to adjust the 26 numbers based on what we know today, based on what our collections have been, based on what where our expenditures are at. And working with the department heads and your acting town manager, we've had that opportunity to say, where do we think we're truly going to be at the end of 26? The beauty of that is it also sets us up to start the 26 estimates for the 27 budget. Gives us a step up, a leg up, which is great news. So while this may have been a lot of work, it's a great start to the next budget process. We did have to correct some allocations in payroll, some interest earnings, lodging and excise tax was not budgeted with a big enough drop. We are seeing about a 12% drop in our lodging and excise tax, where we had originally budgeted just for a 2% drop. We needed to adjust the marina revenues and expenses, because as we all know, the low water impacts are going to have an impact on our revenues coming in, and we are seeing more costs associated with dealing with the low water impacts, hard costs of moving those docks. We also needed to add some budget numbers for some items that were missed in the 26 budget that did not have a budget line item in them. So we've added those. So that's kind of the overall reason why we needed to do all of these supplemental appropriations. What I'd like to do next is slowly, methodically review each fund, but I wasn't going to get into great detail unless you guys had specific questions that you wanted me to answer for you or get back to you if I needed to. So Jesse, if you could pull up the general fund. Let's start with the general fund. So as you all know, the general fund's our big fund. It's the one that operates this town. The majority of the departments are in the general fund now, including the marina. It is not balanced. It was not balanced when it was approved in December of 2025. It is really not balanced today. It's in much worse shape after going through the 25 actuals and looking at how the budget numbers were derived for 26. We've had to make some significant changes. We've also had some additional costs. Some of those costs I think you're very well aware of. Some costs of leadership change, the cost to hire some experts to assist in this interim. We've had some additional costs. So the town manager search. So all those things are included in there. We are seeing a decrease in our revenues of $202,000 in total in the general fund. Expenses are expected to increase $228,000. Not big numbers. The big issue that is a real positive is that our beginning fund balance increased by $1.6 million. So we have cash. We don't have revenues covering expenses, but we have cash available from savings in 2025. So that's good news. That's really good news. Where we're off right now is that revenues do not cover expenses by $527,000. So that's when we say we're unbalanced. That's what's unbalanced. A lot of that is a one-time hit, and we should not see those numbers in 2027. So that's good news, but we need to cover those costs in 2026. And the way we're recommending we do that is to use that beginning fund balance, the excess cash that's available, and shore that up, take care of it, and hope in 2027 we don't have to do this again. That we'll be in much better shape and we can get back to a balanced budget. Now legally, just so you understand legally, and I think in your general fund memo, it stated this, it gave you the blurb from our financial policies. Current revenues have to cover current expenses in operating funds, which this is. Your current revenues are defined as the current revenues you take in, plus the excess of beginning fund balance after reserves. So legally, we're in a good place. We can use those monies the right way. You can't continue to do that. It's not sustainable. As you continue to use your, Ben's laughing over here. As you continue to use your beginning fund balance, you won't have it anymore. So you can't continually do that, of course. But for this year, in order to get through this year, we can't do that. And then we'll work on 2027.
So
Short up.
we're lucky we counted our chips wrong
Yes.
and we
Thank
have,
goodness there was money.
and we have more chips, but only this time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, you really, your goal in budgeting is to try to get as close as you can to reality. You want to be conservative so that you always come out a lot lower in expenses and a lot higher in revenues. But you want to get as close as you can because that does give you the right. If you budget your revenue so high that you then start budgeting expenses and those revenues don't come in, you don't have the money to cover those expenses. So it's really important that when you're doing your estimates for the current year, that a lot of effort goes into making sure those estimates are as close as we possibly can get them. And you can change them right up to the time that you approve the budget in December. Those estimates can change. And that's what I would recommend, that we make sure those estimates are continually reviewed by department heads, supported by the finance team. So we end the year with 872,000, an increase of $872,000. I am recommending, and we'll talk about this later on when we talk about philosophical questions. I am recommending that marina revenues that are more than marina expenses be transferred. And this budget does include this to the capital fund. And the reason for that is that money should probably not shore up the general fund. The general fund should not be relying on that excess when we're paying for marina capital projects out of the capital fund. So that money should roll over there to help support those expenses. So right now, this year that we're looking at, it's 143,000. In better years, when we don't have the low water impact and the revenues are higher and we don't have the forest fires and the water, the drought and the low water, you're going to see a lot more money than that, which will help shore up the capital fund to pay for their capital projects. It won't always cover it, but it certainly is a help. It's
So-
probably the better approach.
Recommendation is any profits from the marina should go into the capital fund to help pay for the capital projects at the marina.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we can talk about that further unless you want to give me direction right now, but it is one of your philosophical questions that I have for you. It is included in this budget that way, as my recommendation. So, second here, I just want to get to the bottom line. So in the bottom line, general fund, we end the year, we're anticipating ending this year with $5.3 million, of which we have reserves. So let's talk about the reserves. We have $215,000 set aside for marina slips. I believe you guys had a conversation with the marina director earlier this year that customers that paid for their slips for 2026, but were unable to put their boat in the water because of the low water levels, were allowed to transfer their slip revenue into 2027, and we did not refund it. So we've collected an extra $215,000 because of that. Then we sold those slips to other customers, newer customers, Frisco customers, people on the wait list, but we didn't sell that many. So the $215,000 is included in the number that you heard from Heather earlier why we're ahead, but we can't spend that this year. So I've reserved it so that it can be spent in 2027, so that we don't spend it this year. The other reserve that I added was the canine donation. We received money from a person in Dillon Valley, I believe, that gave almost $60,000 toward the canine program. And it has to be used as part of her will. It has to be used for canine purposes. So we've spent a little bit of the money, but we still have $56,000, and the police department is not intending to spend a lot this year. Keystone is actually paying a lot of the costs associated with K-9 for 2026. So we don't have a lot budgeted this year, so we are planning to send that, reserve that 56,000 so it can be spent next year. So that's the other reserve. We are at 25% of expenditures for the general reserve. And I know that council has had some discussions in the past. I've heard you would like to increase that. I think that's something we'll talk about if we get to a council retreat this year. We'll talk about ways to accomplish that. There are ways to get that done and talk about, it'll take time, but we can do that. I just wouldn't recommend doing it right now. Let's get through this year and then we'll figure out what we can do next. I guess the other thing I left off was that I did eliminate the transfer. There was a transfer from the parking fund for 150,000 that was approved at the end of the year, and then another 61,000 that was approved by supplemental appropriation. Those are not necessary. We don't need any more cash in the general fund. We need revenues in the general fund. So I have eliminated that. So the parking fund still has $400,000. There's no reason for that to transfer in. And one of your questions that we'll have down the road is, how do you want to use these funds? What are the purpose of the funds, and what would you like to see happen? I do have some recommendations, some thoughts about the parking fund. Now that you don't have a parking in lieu of fee, maybe eliminating the parking fund, rolling those into the general fund, but we can talk about that at a later time. So I think that's it on the big fund.
How much would you suggest putting in reserves?
Well, I think there's a lot of towns that have gone, so in my time here, we've always done 25%. Since I started, well, when I started here, we had no reserves, but we've always done 25%, 3 months. I would say in today's world that people are, you see more, and Heather might be able to answer this better, being that she's in the world today than I'm not. But I would say 6 months to a year is what people are probably doing more of. My concern with doing too much is you have a lot of money when you're doing nothing but making interest. It does make interest. But are you holding back projects because you have so much money sitting there, and is it really necessary? So I think it's a balance of how much do you have for emergencies and making sure you don't have so much that you're not doing anything. It straps you from being able to do any projects. So it's a philosophical question.
Compared to the other towns,
We're low.
we're very meager compared to everybody else.
Yes. And I would say that the other towns started with 3 months and have probably worked their way up to the 6. I don't know if you know more about where's Breck today? I think Silverthorne does 1 year.
Yeah, Breck has more than a year.
Yeah, and Jim did that analysis for us that he handed out at the retreat. I don't have it with me today, but he was saying, yeah, it's pretty much 6 to 18 months
Okay.
in Colorado now.
So I think a good goal would be to try to get us to 6 months first, then see how we're feeling about that. You know, when you use reserves, this is the one thing that we've always talked about over the years, is when you use reserves because you have an emergency. Let's say we lose a portion of town that has our commercial district due to a fire. And so we're not taking in any revenue, and you have to use those reserves. You have to get those reserves back because you've committed to having 6 months of reserves. So, you know, thinking long and hard about how much that is, 18 months is a lot of money. When you have a
Oh,
$15
yeah,
million
that's
budget.
big, unless you're big. I mean,
Right. So
Yeah.
all good discussion that I think we can have at the council retreat when we do it. So
he was just saying it takes fiscal discipline
it is.
to build the reserves.
Well, and anytime you have savings, and this is what you and I talked about, anytime you have savings, put that into the reserve. There's $170,000 that has been in the reserves for health insurance for 10 years. That could easily roll into that 25%, which now becomes a higher number. Because you haven't needed to use that. The original purpose of that 170,000 was we switched from traditional health insurance market because that health insurance market gave us a 26% increase in rates. And at the time, we could not afford a 26% increase in our health insurance for our staff. This was about 10 years ago. And so we went to County Health Pool, we got a proposal, and it saved us $170,000 just by making that switch. And we said, well, let's roll that money into a reserve fund. So in the event we have another big hit, we can use it. Here we are 10 years later, never had to touch it. So County Health Pool's program, the health insurance program, puts you in a category. You can only go up 2 categories. You won't ever see these large increases because they control the increases. So I think you could easily, that's a discussion we can have later, but that 170,000 could roll into the 3-month reserve, and now we have more than 3 months. So there's ways to increase it. Questions about the general fund? Concerns about the supplementals? That was the hardest one.
I was just gonna say, I want to thank you all, both of you, for all the hard work, because this is not easy.
No, it was
And,
not easy.
and it's, and to, even to read through it and everything and to understand what's going on, it takes some time to look at it. So I just wanted, first I wanted to say thanks. That was one of my big ones. And then, and Carrie and I, just so you know, Carrie and I had a big, long meeting the other day, so she answered a number of my questions. And I guess that, you know, the only one that is still intrigues me or is just the police IGA. And so I think we just need to really keep an eye on that. And I still have questions about it as far as just making sure that, you know, like we had there was some big jumps in the capital that's coming next, but just to make sure that and you adjusted it to have a more accurate amount of its budget and actual, of course, were adjusted dramatically, actually. And so I think it's looking more in line like we were expecting. So that's kind
Yeah,
of.
and I guess, so I'll have 2 comments in response to that, Barb. One, I did talk with Scott and Kale earlier today after our discussion yesterday. I am going to be bringing forward on August 4th, the Keystone reconciliation for 2025 and what that looks like and how we came to the numbers that we came to. So I'll have a presentation for you. And then we'll also be doing that similar, not exact same, but a similar presentation to the Keystone board. So we're going to get those lined up. And we will be adding it to the future agenda list for August 4th. I'll be online. I won't be here, but I will be doing that presentation. I think that will help address and hopefully help us all understand where we are with Keystone and why we did what we did. So I think the numbers will help tell a story, and you haven't seen those numbers. So let's get those in front of you, and I think that will help. We also have the 2026 numbers already budgeted. So I can show you that as well, that we've taken that total of 1.4 million and we've put it into that format and said, here's 2026 or 2025, how we did it. Let's do the same thing for 2026. And we've done that so that we're ready and we can compare it as we get the actuals. We keep watching it as we get the actuals and put it into that template. Police department has a template, other has a template. We can move forward. So I think that will help with.
Well, it's
that
brand
side.
new. It's brand new.
It
So
is.
you have to understand it and see how well it
It's
went.
functioning.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the whole thing.
So, and I think it is functioning, and I will tell you that I'm very comfortable with the way we handle it. Now, I do think that the contract, the agreement between Keystone and Dillon needs some minor amendment. And Kayla and I talked about it today, getting with Catherine and seeing if she could help us or their attorney could help us to get that amendment done. There needs to be some better language in there about how you reconcile the expenses. So we'd like to do that and bring that forward to you, hopefully in the next month or so, whenever we can get that done. So we're working on that side too. But the other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm glad you brought it up, Barb, because I forgot to mention it when I was going through the spiel. I did move the way Keystone had been done with prior finance team was that they put all of the money, all of the reimbursement from Keystone into the general fund. Yet we have money being paid out of the capital fund. And when the 26 for Keystone, when the 26 budget was done, all of the money showed coming into the general fund and all of the money, including capital, showed coming out of the general fund. So I have since moved the revenue portion of that 1.4 million into the capital fund and the expense portion of that 1.4 million into the capital fund. So everything that we're collecting in capital for them is showing in revenue and all the expenses are showing in expense for Keystone. And now the general fund is just operating. So that is part of the difference. So, and I think it makes more sense to track it better. And when you see the spreadsheets that we've done, you'll see that we're also comparing percentage of costs based on operating versus capital. So, does that help? Does that help answer? Barb, you comfortable?
Yeah. Yeah, I also just was, I'm, a couple of the questions I just wanted to ask were just for the community
Sure.
so to make sure that we're kind of educating what we're
Yep.
doing. So.
Yep. Yeah, the more we can get on the record, probably the better.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to talk to anyone that wants to talk about budget, community or otherwise. So capital is our next fund. If you could go to that one, Jesse. The capital fund had a decrease in the beginning fund balance, just $220,000, not significant. We have a slight decrease in revenues, and that is the slight decrease is because we were actually, we moved that Keystone money in there, which offset the decrease in the sales tax. So that gave us that opportunity. I also moved, in order to help in the general fund, we ended up moving $200,000 of sales tax out of the capital fund into the general fund. It may have to be more, and you'll see that the capital fund can afford to it in order to help balance, but we'll see. You know, we got to work through some of that. I guess I should tell you, we are still working, department heads, Scott, myself, Heather, we're working on continually looking at our revenues and our expenses to make sure that we're really honed in on good numbers for 26. So these numbers may change by the time we present them to you again, or we may do this again in October or November when we have better information. So we're constantly working on this. We do have increases in expenditures for the capital fund, and that's because the capital fund can handle the increase in expenditures. I am asking that we add $50,000 to the computer line. It's been $50,000 for a long time, a year, which I think is normally sufficient. But last year we spent 14,000 and 2 years ago we spent 20. So the 3-year replacement plan that we had in place has not been followed. And we really need to get the computers back working again and make sure everyone's got more up-to-date equipment. And the reason for the 3-year is that at the end of 3 years, there's no warranty on it. And we take those, typically we take those 3-year-old computers and we do them as hand-me-downs to people that don't need to process as fast, don't need the latest and greatest. So we do have a system for doing that. So working with our IT team to see if we can't get back on track. So I'm asking for another 50,000. Police equipment, that 225,000 is the Keystone capital items that they will be paying for in this budget that were already included in the general fund. Plus there's another 12,500 that they're paying for. So that's why the revenues are 12,500 higher than the expenses, because they're paying half the cost of the facility analysis for the police department building. I did move from Dura, as we'll get to Dura later tonight, but Dura is not in great shape. So we are moving 3 projects from Dura to, have them all on there? Yeah, 3 projects from Dura to capital. It's $250,000. We're moving them in order to help with the Dura budget. And there were 3 projects that were actually in the capital fund before. So we moved them back into the capital fund. We are also, we're delaying the disc golf course until next year. Scott does not believe that's going to get done this year. And then we did have a costs that were budgeted incorrectly for public works equipment. So those, it's just a $16,000 difference, but that's accounted for. I eliminated the transfer in of 12,500. It finally dawned on me what it was, and it's the 12,500 for the police facility, but instead I've shown it as a revenue, not a transfer. And I really think we need to try to work towards not using transfers. And then I have the transfer in for the marina that we talked about earlier, their difference between revenues and expenses. The memo does show $2.3 million, or I'm sorry, $2.7 million in ending fund balance. It's really 2.3. Had a slip of the finger. From the budget. So we're actually sitting in really good shape. And if you look at the 5-year capital fund, it's in pretty good shape. We have some money to work with as we move into 2027. So good news, changes that need to be made, but good news that we can do some things next year. Any questions on capital? Am I going too fast? Am I talking too fast? I told Heather to hit me if I want.
I haven't thought she was yet.
Okay, good. So just hit me. If we could go to streets, Dusty. So streets, there's not a lot of changes in this. They're all pretty minor changes, actually. Again, amending the beginning fund balance, since we're doing it for let's do it for every fund, since we're doing it for some. It's only $48,000, but it is an increase, so that's good news. We are having to drop our revenues because of the lodging tax that we talked about earlier and the excise tax, and then the interest earning allocation. The expenditure changes are pretty minor. And basically what happened was the annual payments were not broken out properly in the budget from the debt schedules. So I just fixed them so they match the debt schedules and they're accurate now. And we end the year about $13,000 lower than anticipated in that from the revenue decrease. So not a big change in streets. And we end the year 2026 with $369,000. This fund will get, if you actually look at the 5-year plan and you go out to 2029, you will see that toward the very first line item of the debt service, which is bond principal 2017 bonds, those bonds actually get paid off in 2030. And so it looks like we're going to have more money. And just, do you have that spreadsheet? Or can you pull that up for me? Thank you. You see where there you go. The 2017 in 2029 and 2030 has no money in it. And that's because those bonds are paid off. But what you see moving down is that by design, the other two bonds now increase their annual payment amount to get those paid off. So all three of those bonds, while they were all issued at different times, worked together for revenue sources and funding because they all came from the same sales tax fund. So our annual bond payments are similar, but how we pay them and to which bonds we pay changes. Does that make sense?
So you're applying it, you're taking the money that was being applied to the 2017 and applying it to the 2020. And then, because there was some concern about a balloon payment, but that's not what that is. We're just shifting resources, right? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, there is no balloon payment. I don't know where that rumor came from, but the town does not have any balloon payments.
So how long before those other bonds are paid off?
The 2020s, I think it's 2030, no. 2034?
I think it's 2034.
So we just have 4 more payments on that? 4 more years? to
4
pay.
more years.
Yeah.
Not payments, but yeah. Yeah, they're not too much longer. We didn't want them. So I know these say 2017, 2015, 2020, but that's not when they were issued.
Okay.
That's when they were refinanced. We were able to most of them went from 4 or 5% down to 2 to 3.5% interest rates because the market was at a good place. And so it was an opportunity to refinance. Didn't cost us anything to refinance. And we saved quite a bit of money. But this, when we refinanced, this is how we did the payment structure so that it wasn't so long. So, and I apologize, I don't remember. It might be 2036, but I can find that out. But bottom line, it's not too much longer after the ones that are paid off in 2030, which is not that far away.
That's the end of our
Yeah,
term. Come on.
I actually issued bonds that I actually got to pay off. That was a big thing for me. Any questions on streets? And then once that debt's paid, this fund goes in perpetuity. This dedicated sales tax continues on. So then you can use it for street reconstruction, I mean, you can use it now for that. You're just having to put a portion of it already to debt. But once that debt's paid off, you have the capability to do more street projects. It has to be streets related, but you can maintain streets through this. You can construct streets through this. You know, the cemetery street hasn't been done. And
We'll have some money to play with.
we'll have some money to do some more projects that maybe haven't been done in the past. Okay, so anything else on streets? You guys are being so good to me. The housing 5A. So, again, we're gonna amend the beginning fund balance. It does increase by 279,000. Really, the only change in this one is that I am eliminating that $1.6 million transfer for 2026. We're not sure where that came from. It's being transferred in the budget that was approved in December. It's actually being transferred to the water fund, which the water fund cannot legally accept that because it's an enterprise fund. So we can't transfer it. And the only thing we can come up with was why that was being done was it was maybe for tap fees for County Road 51. Right?
We suspect because we,
That's what we were told. There's the tap fees for County Road 51.
right, we think that that is true. Remember that we agreed to not charge for water or sewer. Sewer was going to Dillon Valley, but we needed to, as an enterprise fund, we can't, we have to reimburse the water fund. So I believe, but the numbers don't quite match.
So anyway, I've eliminated that. No longer in the housing, no longer showing as it's no longer in the housing and it's no longer showing in the water fund. So we've eliminated that. It just can't happen. It is partly why though the water fund is not in great shape. So we'll talk about that as we get there.
Terry, can we loan any money to the water fund?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that as an option. Okay. So basically what that says is that at the end of the year, the housing fund is in great shape and has $5.1 million, almost $2 million up. That's great news. So more projects. Again, when we go to council retreat, we can have discussions about what your goals are for this fund. You'd like to see happen.
I will remind council that we did agree to earmark $500,000 for the Habitat for Humanity project.
And that is in this budget.
Yeah.
So that's already taken out of that, the $500,000. You guys actually approved that by resolution, I believe, at your last meeting.
And then just as a reminder, we are funding the Housing Helps program as well through this.
We budgeted $1 million. Last year, we spent 654,000.
The Housing Helps buy down that we do.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a discussion that council can have as we go into retreat about what you'd like to see happen with this fund and where you'd like to see those monies directed. So.
I never understood what the housing design was. Do you guys can, for the 300,000 and the 26? Does anybody remember what that was?
Looks like it was in the 25 budget and wasn't done, and then it was moved to the 26 budget. And maybe we spent $30,000 of it last year. And here comes Ned.
Yeah, I can tell you that money was set aside for design work for the caretaker house up at the water plant to go from the 2 units that we have there to do multiple units for employee housing.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, sewer fund. So we're gonna get into the 2 enterprise funds, which are the water and sewer. If we can go to the sewer fund, the sewer came up first in the list, so we'll talk about sewer first and then we'll get into the water. Sewer, again, because they're enterprise funds, they show it as net position, beginning of year. Just so you understand, that net position includes assets. And I'm talking large amounts of fixed assets, capital assets. Which is a little deceptive. It's a little hard to understand when you're looking at the budget, when you've got those assets included. So I've done some work to show that differently for you.
Because we can't spend an asset.
You cannot spend assets. I mean, you could if you sold them all, but then you wouldn't have a system. So first of all, sewer fund. So I have this broken out right now by sewer fund, and then 3 pages in, you get to the sewer plant investment fund. So the way these were done, originally, the sewer and water were each its own fund with, there was not 2 funds for each utility. Water had 1 fund, sewer had 1 fund. We decided that it would be good, transparent information to show the customer that here's the operating side of our water and here's the fees that you pay. Here's the capital project side. So similar to our general fund, capital fund, right? So we would do that for the water fund and we would do that for the sewer fund. So we switched it, and I don't remember the timing of that, but it was a long time ago. So we've had 2 funds. Now, when you get to the audit process and you look at the audited financial statements, it goes to 1 fund. So that is 2 different ways of looking at. So one of your questions later on will be, should we use it similar? Should we present it similar? So, and I know that now the financials, the monthly financials, I think you're seeing them combined as well. So should the budget be shown that way as well? We'll get into that later. Sewer fund is in pretty good shape, does have an increase in net position by almost 200,000. Sewer rents, we do have some revenue changes of $76,000. Because, so sewer has been traditionally in the past, 81% going to the operating side of sewer and 19% going to the capital side of sewer. You paid 1 fee. When you look at your water and sewer bill, you pay 1 fee to capital or to sewer. That's what you've been doing. We've been doing that for years. And that's how we broke it out between these 2 funds. The percentage changed over time, but right now it's an 81-19. So the way this was set up in the budget was an 81-19. But with the new rate study that was just done and the rates that were adopted, now the operating side gets a certain amount per EQR and the capital side gets a certain amount per EQR. So we don't do that percentage anymore. Well, the budget's off because that wasn't accounted for. So I have fixed that in the operating side, but then of course the negative on the capital side. As you know, we did not collect revenues for the sewer capital for the first 7 months of the year. We are now, we have it set up now so that August 1st we'll start collecting those. And I worked on a plan with Scott today to recoup that 7 months over the 12 months of next year. So I worked on that plan today, and I think we have a good plan moving forward that we can show you guys, hopefully on August 4th, maybe. We did have to decrease the interest, and then we just have some minor changes in expenditures. We eliminated 1 small budget that never gets used. We did reduce computer support, and we did have to increase payroll. So overall, this fund, the sewer fund, has seen an increase of another $400,000 in cash, or in net position, sorry, not cash, net position. Then on the capital side, we start the year up again with additional net position of 117,000. We actually reduce our revenues by quite a bit, by $260,000, partly because of the capital fees that are higher in the operating side, but also we have tap fees that were budgeted, and we have no projects in Dillon for 2026 to support tap fee collections. So we need to eliminate those tap fees projections. I've talked with Dan, I've talked with Ned and Scott, and there's just no projects out there that support that collection tap fees. So we're eliminating that 191,000. And the expenditure changes are pretty minor. There's been some work on the lift stations that wasn't budgeted for. So we added that. If you go to, Jesse, if you wouldn't mind going to the last page, page 4 of this at the bottom, if you go to the bottom, this is where I'm now breaking out. I'm showing this, the net position being broken out between, first of all, combining the 2 funds. So combining the net position for sewer, combining the net with the net position for sewer plant investment fund, combining those 2, and then showing out of that number, how much from the audit is spendable versus non-spendable. In other words, how much is cash, current payables, current receivables versus assets minus long-term liabilities. And those assets are basically your capital assets. It's your water and sewer systems, it's vehicles, it's equipment, sewer lines, lift stations. You can't spend that money. So that takes if you look at the final number for 26, while we have $7 million in that position, it looks like we have a lot that we can work with. What we can work with is 2.6 million, not 7 million. And I think that was part of the concern that I heard from some council members when you look at net position from the public standpoint, especially in the water fund, where they were looking at a $10 million number. And why did we raise rates if you have $10 million? We don't have $10 million. We have assets, but we don't have cash. We don't have spendable cash. So I think having this at the bottom or as part of the fund in the budget is really important. And maybe even putting that in the financial statements each month, that of this, we're anticipating this much is spendable. Won't be exact, but we can give a good percentage. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that,
Um,
do you follow that?
So the spendable funds, is that something we spend on the sewer part in Dillon itself, or is that part, some of it we have to pay to Silverthorne?
So it's everything.
Okay,
Yep. So our sewer fund, because we don't treat our own sewage, right? We send it down, our sewer all goes down to Silverthorne to the Blue River wastewater treatment plant, which we are part owner in. Dillon and Silverthorne own that facility together, and we are a member of that. So what we do is we pay per EQR. We pay a certain amount. Tom Silverthorne runs it. We pay it directly to Silverthorne on behalf of the Joint Sewer Authority as our share of the treatment costs.
right.
But everything else, the collection system and the lift stations are Dillon's. We
Right.
own the collection system and the lift station. So we're responsible for taking care of those. And that's what this fund does. So this fund collects revenue from our customer, from our sewer customer. Then you pay the Joint Sewer Authority for our share of treatment. And then we pay to maintain our lift station and our collection system.
And then we also have a capital improvement plan.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Sewer has both.
And the capital improvement fund is mostly for Dillon's part of it?
It is for Dylan's part of it. It's all Dylan's part of it.
Okay,
Yeah, we have not earmarked any money as of yet for a JSA expansion project. That's, we've talked about whether that will be a project and at what point will it be a project. But for right now, we haven't, none of the members have committed anything to that. So that number's not showing up yet.
would be,
So the majority of our capital improvement that we're looking at is sewer line rehabilitation, but then also a lot of sewer main relocation as a process of supporting redevelopment in the core.
okay. And I lost my train of thought there. So with the capital fund, we can do that, but it doesn't make any difference. I just wanted to have clarification on how much and what is going on, but that's fine. It's okay.
Whatever we collect is Dillon's from sewer customers, is Dillon's to spend, but we have to spend money for treatment.
Okay, I was gonna, on the expansion plan, are we buying any more EQRs for, if we donate to it?
We would like to, and some of these reserves or cash could go for that. And that would be a goal. I think it's something that we've talked about how many EQRs we presently own and how many of those EQRs are connected and what we have left to support redevelopment in the core.
Right.
And if we do everything we hope and dream to do in the core, we're going to use a lot of that reserve.
Right,
And so it would be wonderful if there's an opportunity in the future to purchase additional capacity at the JSA.
right.
I think we should do it. I'd recommend that we do it.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
And the JSA information is in our audited financials that we presented on July 7th. So it's in the notes of financials, like our portion of the JSA and what we spend and revenues and expenditures, and that's reconciled.
And we do show in our balance sheet, we do show an investment in the Georgia Sewer Authority because we do own that facility with the town of Silver. There are 5 participants, but 2 of us.
And Ben, just to clarify, we do have a little room to go on the sewer side
We
of
still
it.
have
Yeah,
a
we
few more,
do.
Yeah.
We have a greater concern in terms of capacity and demand on the water side of it, but on the sewer side of it, we do have a little room to go. So I believe our number, and this is not exact, but 2,600 EQRs, 2,000 of which are roughly connected. We have 600 to go, but depending on the scale and scope of the project that you do in the core, you could use up a lot of that very quickly.
Right.
So, yeah, but don't have a crystal ball and don't know what that looks like yet.
But I would think that if we want to do more development in the core and stuff like that, we would purchase some more if we had the opportunity.
And not only, yeah, if we have the opportunity and especially for the future of the community, long-term, not next year, but 20, 40, 50 years from now.
I won't be here, but that's okay.
Yep.
Me either.
Me neither.
We actually bought 200 EQRs probably 4 years ago. They did a paper expansion.
Yeah.
And we were able to purchase additional at pretty low cost.
Yeah, and
Good.
I've gone through that with you before, but we did the paper expansion and then we did the EQR analysis where we all gained a little bit more. So we're getting more detailed in what it actually takes to what we're sending down the pipe and what has to be treated. And so we're getting closer and closer to that, but I think there's not a lot of room now for those types of engineering exercises.
Technology.
That's true.
Right?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So that's it on sewer. Any questions on the sewer fund? All right, let's talk about water. So water's not as in good a shape as the sewer fund is. We are starting the year down $658,000. So that does not help. On the revenue side, revenues were predicted to be similar to 2025. They're predicted to be similar to 2025 right now. In this budget, they were about $258,000 higher in the budget that was adopted. Just don't see how we're gonna ever hit that 258,000, even with the rate increases with water restrictions. So we've dropped that number down. We're seeing a fairly significant drop in water usage. Now we're just coming up on irrigation season. We just got our June numbers. They were down about $60,000 last year. July's our heavy irrigation, July and August. July is probably our heaviest irrigation system, and then August. Get some irrigation in September, maybe slight in October. So maybe we'll see some increases the rest of the summer, but most likely not. So we think we have to drop our revenues significantly, which is not helping. We do have the O&M fee for the 5 months. I put that back in, the 5 months that we are collecting now. And then interest earnings are down, and then the paper bill fee was not budgeted. So I just included that. On the expenditure side, we've taken a look at everything. We dropped a few items that we could. We had to increase some things that were not budgeted properly. And one of the big increases was in the general water operations, which is legal was under budgeted. So was payroll, and so was liability insurance. So those 3 caused the increase. We offset that a little bit by eliminating that we have $30,000 for a grant program that we didn't feel like was going to happen this year.
And keep in mind with legal, given the drought situation, which we didn't forecast, we're spending a lot on legal in terms of having to evaluate our augmentation plans and emergency substitution water plans and so on and so forth. So because of the drought, our legal expenses have gone up.
So what we end up with is revenues don't cover expenses by $308,000. So again, we could use beginning fund balance, but we don't have any. We can use beginning fund balance from the water plant investment side, but there isn't enough to cover. So this is a fund that right now, as it sits today, does not have adequate funding. Scott and Mark Hellman and Evan Dawson are working hard on looking at ways to cut expenses and ways to maybe delay some capital. That, and I'll let Scott speak to this if you'd like, but I believe he has a way to extend part of the water plant expansion into next year, which will give us the money that we need to not balance the budget, but at least cover what we're under. So,
So we had money earmarked for the water plant expansion design, which is moving a little bit slower than we anticipated. I had a status update conversation with the engineers, and I don't know the number yet, but we're talking about taking money that we had budgeted for this year and moving it into the following year, which would help along with a plan to recapture some lost revenue from O&M on the water.
so on the water plant investment side, to continue down track, the capital fees, we have to drop. Not seeing that same amount. The tap fees, again, there's $246,000 budgeted, and we don't see any way to collect that. We don't know where that money would come from. So we're eliminating that from the budget. Earned interest is down 26,000. On the expenditure side, we're dropping $310,000, which is helpful. We have that done. Some savings from project that is no longer needed and didn't need to be budgeted. And then the lease water contracts and the ODR assessment is already in the water fund, but didn't need to be in the water plant investment fund, so we just took it out of here. It's always been in the water fund, so we just took it out of there. And then again, that I eliminated that transfer 1.6 million that was shown from the housing authority, so that was a big hit to the cash for this fund. All of that resulted in this fund of a decline of $1.5 million in cash, or in net position, sorry. I'm so used to saying cash, so I apologize. Net position. One of the things that the microfiltration membrane replacement, which is the reserve fund in the water plant investment fund, we've been doing this for 15, 20 years. We've been putting $75,000 in a year, and it's supposed to accumulate so that when you get to the point where you're replacing the membranes, you have the money set aside in the budget. So that's what we've been doing, but what happened the last couple of years is just 75,000 has been done. So it should be 225 this year, but the fund can't afford that. So I have it at 150, depending on what we get with savings and what we can move to next year. We'll try to get that back to the 225 where it needs to be. Because in a few years, we'll have to replace those and we need to have the money set aside. So that's the tough one. That's probably, the general fund's a tough one and this one's a tough one. It's not insurmountable. It is doable. We can fix this. We can move forward in a positive way. We're just gonna have to make some tough decisions. And one of the things that we can talk about later is whether this fund, it would help if this fund if these two funds combined into one. There is still not enough cash, but with what Scott's proposing with delaying part of the project, it'll probably get us back on the plus side. So that would help. So we can look at that down the road. And I think in some ways, although I'm an advocate for them having two separate funds and showing the community and your water customer how those fees are being used, at the same time, it's not a good comparison to your audit or your monthlies financials. So maybe it does make sense to combine them back. There's pros and cons.
So I had one clarifying question then.
Sure.
So once again, so when you start, the net position in the water fund starts off negative.
Yes.
So, how? Is that because the wear and tear on the assets, or how does it start out negative? How do I answer this to a constituent?
How does the water operating side start out
Yes.
negative when the water plant invests? Okay, so this happened with, and this is gonna be, I don't know if I can make this into layman's terms, but I will try my darndest. It happened with GASB 34 back. So GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They issue statements that we have to follow and how we present information to the public. So the statement 34 was when we started with capital assets, and we had to, before that statement, which was early on in my career here, we did not have to show capital assets in general fund, in the general government. And so it added that in. It also changed how we handled tap fees, and which is where the water and sewer comes in. So the way we handle tap fees, where we used to account for them as what we called a contributed capital in the water and sewer on the capital side. Well, those then were eliminated. We no longer track them that way, and they became a revenue source. So when we separated these out, cash did not flow right in the two funds. It's probably the best way I can explain it. I think if we combine them back together, Barb.
And I did ask Jim Hinkle that after the constituent asked me, you know, how do you look at this? Because, okay, it's showing, we're 1,700,000 down. Is that why my rates are going up or whatever? You know,
Right.
we're starting in the hole. And he was saying no, because the two funds are usually worked in
Together.
coordination. And of course, the other one starts with 1,000,000 or 11 million.
Right.
So that's the confusion. So I mean, the way you just explained it, there's no way I can explain that myself. So
So I said, I don't know if I can give it to you in layman's terms. It's an
Yeah.
accounting practice from years ago that's almost impossible because you can't, in order to move cash between funds, these are two separate funds. In order to move cash between two separate funds, you have to have a revenue and expense.
okay.
Well, you don't have a revenue and expense today to account for those changes. So there's no way to do that in today's world. There's no way to move that. I've had that discussion with multiple auditors down the road. Because it gets done in the audit version, and because I was showing it as a cash basis during the time that I was here, it never had the negative. Now that you're showing it with net position, it shows the negative.
So the question was posed to me, well, if we had a brand new plant, would that be a negative number?
No.
It was a brand, so this is indicating that there's wear and tear on an older existing plant. Yes or no? Do I have that right or not?
No,
Okay,
no, it really is a function, an accounting function from tap fees that were marked instead of as revenue. They were always considered contributed capital, so they became an asset
okay.
rather than a revenue source. And now tap fees are shown as a revenue source, and we never put them into the assets, so we can spend them. Or before you couldn't. So it just accumulated the net position.
Over time.
Over time.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, I'm not sure it helped, but I tried. But let's go to, just if you don't mind scrolling down just a tad bit on that water fund. Yeah, keep going. Right there, perfect. So at the bottom, again, this shows you the same thing as the sewer fund. We've combined this water fund and the water plant investment fund, so you can see the net position. So instead of, as you bring up the 11 million, or well, it's $2 million in the hole and almost $11 million in the water plant investment fund for 2026. So it ends up being a net of 8.8 million. Of that 8.8 million, only 267,000 is spendable. If you didn't have that in there, you'd think you could budget for the $8 million. So that had to change. That had to change. So that's a little eye-opening and part of the problem. So we need to, I would suggest that this be the way all budgets are moving forward that have net position.
Other questions?
Any questions on that? Doing okay on time?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm not even talking.
Any other questions from
No,
council members?
I just wondered about the future as we go forward. We probably need to add another filter system and to count for the growth of the thing. So we're going to probably have to take a loan out from somebody to do that.
We will, and you weren't here for those presentations, but we're currently in the design phase of a water plant expansion to make some modifications to the chemical feed systems, add a skid, bring us from 900 gallons per minute to 1,200 gallons per minute, and new office space and some other things. And there's a number of ways to pay for it. We are projecting there to be some tap fees that will contribute to the project, but then also looking at financing probably the majority of the project at some point.
Okay.
And that was accounted for. Part of it was accounted for, you'll recall, in the rate study that we discussed. But there was always the expectation that we would have to finance part, for a fair portion of that project.
The other thing, we used to do a 10-year capital fund, a look at 10-year capital projects for water and 10-year capital projects for sewer. And I would suggest getting back. I believe Scott has tried to set up, but it hasn't been in budget. And I would suggest that as you move forward, that those be. It's important.
I'm worried about having enough water for the expansion plans we would hope to have.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. Okay, so the last three funds are the small, that we call them special revenue funds, meaning they have a specific revenue source, and then the expenses have to be used to meet that revenue source. The first one is the parking fund. Does have an increase of 17.9. There's a slight decrease in revenues from interest earnings. I am that's the $211,000 that I told you about earlier in the general fund. Suggest we not transfer that. The parking fund ends up with $423,000. As we move forward and when we get to this discussion as part of the 2027 budget, I understand that you no longer have parking in lieu of fees, I believe, in the code. I'm correct on that? We no longer collect parking in lieu of fees?
I believe we've done that for restaurants.
Oh, just one. Okay. Just one category.
Correct.
Okay, so this fund, just so you understand, this fund was originally established because the parking in lieu of fee requires a separate fund. In our code, it requires a separate fund. You have to maintain those fees. You have to use those fees for parking and you have to spend them within, I believe it's 10 years. I don't remember the exact number, but I believe it's 10 years. It's something that council probably needs to be more aware of how that works. So if parking in lieu of fees go into this fund, it has to be spent in a certain period of time or it has to be returned to the person that paid them. So that's in the code. I was going to suggest that this fund go away, but now I can't. But there is 423,000. You can use it for parking purposes. Staff may have some suggestions. That money next year, so we'll worry about
Does it
that.
say in the code how we have to spend the money as parking, just for parking?
Yes.
So making some type of adjustment for parking, the streets we could use that money for? Or maybe design?
Yep. It was originally established that the original intent of this was to, as you remember, we were to collect all these parking in lieu of fees and then use it to build a parking structure. Well, that's never going to happen. So there's other ways. We did, as for example, we did collect some parking in lieu of fees from the town center and we did the parking on Buffalo Street.
Yeah.
And then when we get to Dura, we have some thoughts on how to use some expenses in Dura that we think we could use this parking fee, the parking fund to cover some costs and relieve some pressure on Dura.
Okay, so that was parking, then. And then the next one is the Conservation Trust Fund. So that's the fund that was set up for lottery proceeds. So we collect a certain amount of lottery proceeds. It's based on population. It comes from the state. And you are required by law, in order to receive those funds, you have to have a separate fund. You have to report this fund every year to the state, how you spent it, and they are very particular about how you spend it. You have to be very careful how you use this money. There are no expenses in this fund. There haven't been for a couple of years. We've always used this fund as a way to kind of grow it, get a good fund balance in there and use it for a part. That's what we've done in the past. Right now, the increase, so suggest amending the beginning fund balance by $2,900. It ends up, end of year, we have 135,000.
And Ned and I have discussed, we have some source water protection projects and some fire mitigation projects that we've talked about, we think would fit the criteria possibly for the Conservation Trust.
The nice thing is Conservation Trust, the lot Greater North Colorado has a website that lists specific projects and what you, or they are very specific. When funds were originally set up, that many governments were caught not using the funds appropriately, so it became very strict. And it has been very strict for years. And no additional monies can go in there. It has to be just lottery, interest on the lottery. You can't put donations in there. You can't put park and open space fees. Nothing else can go in. So it's very, very restricted. Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund is the last fund. Increase of $1,600. We do have some increases in revenue just because, and the only reason why we know this is because we're 6 months in. So had a year where we have increases. We have increases in revenues, so I have adjusted those. Okay. And cemetery is broken out by, as I think we've talked in the past, but time is, we have that non-spendable perpetual care fund amount. And that's from the sale of lots. Cannot spend that. Goal is to spend the interest off of that, so you don't ever spend that money. That's $104,000 projected to be at the end of the year. We have 28,000 that's already reserved for capital projects. That's because there's capital fee paid by the person that buys a lot. That money's reserved for capital. The $15,000 for gravesite markers is a deposit. So these people have deposit, families have paid a deposit that they will put in a gravestone marker here. If they don't do it, we do it money. If they do it, we send them back the money. Then 77,000 left. So there's a little bit of money to spend in the cemetery, not a significant sum. Any questions on small revenue fund? We'll talk about Dura later tonight. We have a work session set up for that, so we will talk about that in further detail. The next step, I wanted to go through with you guys. Any questions? Sorry, I didn't break. Let's talk a little bit about our next step. So as I told you earlier, we're still working on with department heads, their supervisors, Scott, Heather, myself. We're all working on what we can do to continue to improve these. So we'll continue looking for savings. We'll continue looking at revenues to make sure that we've properly budgeted for them. We'll even do that before we bring this back to you by resolution. We'll make sure there aren't some other changes we need to make. I do think we may have some more changes in the marina revenues just because of the low water, and now they've been through the 4th of July, which is their big season. I think we'll have some good information. Their office person, Maddie, took over Charlie, and she's tracking all that. We'll have some good information from her. So I'll work with them on that. I was hoping that we could review the final version of this at the work session on August. If you wanted to have further discussion about this, we could certainly do that. And then we could approve this on August 18th. If you're ready, we would bring this for you. Resolution on August. If you'd rather wait, think it through, go through, talk some more. August 18th. Our goal is to get this done, approved, and moved on before we start at the time we start the 2027 budget. I'd like to be done with this.
And these adjusted numbers will help guide and inform us moving forward in the 27 budget. So the adoption of what we've discussed here this evening is an important piece of the 27 budget.
So I have 5 philosophical questions. If you are comfortable tonight, you prefer, I mean, we still have time. We can start talking about them and see how far we get. If you want to table one of them and you say, I can't make that decision tonight, or I'm not comfortable, we could move it forward. We could even move it to the retreat. But if you feel like after looking at these budget changes and the discussion that we've had tonight, that the direction that this budget is going is the direction you'd like to go, I'd like to know that now. Not comfortable making that decision tonight, that's fine. So if you're okay, I'd like to move forward. First question, which is on the marina profits. I explained to you earlier. Right now, I'm showing marina revenues. They exceed expenditures, but that transfer in capital fund to pay for budget, or pay for budgeted capital projects associated with the marina. Now, it probably will never tie, we may not ever cover them, but at least some of that revenue is going there and not just being absorbed into the general fund. And the reason why I think that's important is that at some point in time, you may want to take that marina back to an enterprise. It's been an enterprise fund for 30 years. You may want to take it back to an enterprise fund. If it's supporting the general fund and money's being used to help shore up the general fund from marina, you're going to have a hard time doing that. That will be a hard hit the year you do this fund. So I would suggest that that's a goal road that we move on and we help cover their capital costs. Now the question becomes, I think the question some of you may be having right now is what happens if their revenues don't cover their expenses? Right? One, I don't think that's something that should be allowed. That operating revenues should cover operating expenses in the marina fund. And if it doesn't, why? And how do we shore that up? Can we make cuts in the operating? Or is there another revenue source that can assist? I will tell you that I have not seen that in many, many years at the marina, that revenues have always covered operating. They've been able to cover their own operating. Not necessarily. So that's a discussion that I think goes along with this is if revenues don't cover, does the general fund have to take care of it?
And remember,
We transfer from capital back to general.
part of the discussion with a different council about switching the marina from an enterprise fund and absorbing it into the general was their borrowing ability. And we had just done the marina master plan, realizing that there were some very expensive projects and they weren't able necessarily as an enterprise fund to borrow the money to do the projects. And so we moved them into the general fund where we could finance those bit larger projects. And I don't think that's changed. We know what some of the costs are for some of the projects down as a part at the marina as a part of the marina master plan.
Yeah, my question then, well, I mean, it really isn't a separate fund anymore, so it's just in the general fund. So if you require that its revenues cover its operating, can you require that? Is it like a sub fund and you just require it of the marina?
We probably have to talk to the auditor about that, but I think we could do it as a sub fund, but roll it into the totals.
Well, and it's set up in the GL still is.
Yeah, it's on
So
fund.
it's doable.
So the question then was, yeah, if for some reason the marina loses money, then the general fund has to cover it. You're only saying if you're tracking it separately, that it generates some funds and then it sounds like, or I assume, looking at the marina capital information, that the marina has capital needs always.
Correct.
So that's the idea, is it always has capital needs. So if it has anything extra, then it should be funding some of its capital needs.
Yeah, even the boat rentals, just as an example, boat rentals were 114, budgeted for 114,000 this year. And we replace boats every year. I mean, there's a replacement plan for the boats. This year they just did engines, still rental boats. They ended up doing engines for 80,000, but you're gonna always have costs. You know, the vehicle's probably every 5 to 10 years. You're not gonna have that cost, but you've got other costs, software and computers, and there's always capital costs that need to be taken care of, that are running in the capital fund now. So why not provide some revenue source?
And offset the capital costs. There's a lot of stuff that lives in capital.
Yes.
And by doing this and earmarking it for that, we're freeing up money for the other capital expenses that we have.
In the past, we loaned money to the marina
Mhm.
for the capital projects. And it was
Then they paid
bonded
us
by the
back.
town and they paid us back and we paid off the bonds. And that's how they got enough money to do their capital projects. And I thought that was the best way to do it because we could not only they would pay us back a little bit, but we could we could give them so much money out of the general fund to pay off the capital expense to the bonds.
But now that.
You can't do
marinas-
that.
No,
Nope.
nope, it's sitting in the general fund, so
Right.
you can't loan.
We can roll it in and out each year depending on the need. Like we could make it an enterprise fund and then come back into the general fund as it needs more than 10% of its revenues. We can float it that way with proper planning, but it's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I would not suggest that. And I think that's hard for the public to understand too, if you go back and forth. I think from a transparency standpoint, you should be consistent with it, come up with your policy and run with it for a certain period of time, whatever that looks like. You know, it might be 5 or 10 years down the road. You say, let's go back to who's ever here. So says, let's go back to the price
I
fund.
think Rachel has a question she'd like to.
Was she? Oh,
Oh, hi, everybody. Sorry to miss the meeting. And I don't know if this is an appropriate time to make this comment, but it seems like it is. I know we're talking about cleaning up the current budget, but just wanted to pass along from EDAC, there was discussion about the seawall and maybe doing some prep work because of the low water we have this year after the marina season. There was discussion, and I know we've had discussion about this topic before, but I just wanted to bring it up as we are talking about the current year budget, that EDAC would just made a recommendation they'd like to see that that we do maybe some work like studying, geotechnical studying or whatever we can do in order to save money because of the low water. So I just wanted to throw that out there while we're having this discussion about the current budget.
Scott and I had this discussion also, so I'll let Scott comment.
Yeah, and it's, Dan and Ned and others are looking into the cost to at least complete and I see Dan coming up here, to look into the geotechnical part of it. There is an opportunity with the water as low as it is that we can to do the geotechnical, that you're doing drill course. And we can kind of, now that the water's so low, we can get in there and drill to our heart's content because there's a lot of open land there. But we have had that discussion. I think Dan is working on getting what the cost to do that was. And if there's room in this year's budget to do that we would look at that. It was a proposal from EDAC to this council. Obviously, we would bring it to this council for consideration.
Yeah, I have some concerns about the seawall in general because I haven't really seen a full plan of what the $5 million is. If you go to the master plan where it talks about completing the seawall, because half was done and there's half more, it only listed it as about $1 million, and that was in 2020. And so, with inflation, it might be more than that, but you're still, that's a big difference between 1 million and 5 million. And so I don't understand. I've never seen a full plan of what is included in that 5 million. for the seawall. So are you talking about just completing the Gabion wall or whatever it is properly named?
Yeah, usually in master plans, the numbers are totally bogus. And so I wouldn't put much faith in that number. We reached out to JHL. It's a very specialized construction using a sheet piling construction. And we gave them the plan set from previous thing we did probably about 15 years ago. And they took those plan sets and looked at it and said, this is what it's going to cost. The GMC, that cost we get, which goes up every day, right? Because of inflation and everything. It's going to be closer to $5.5 million, but it's their proposal was it's a GMGC contract. So it's general manager, general contractor proposal. But what that means is that they act on our behalf. They do the general management part of their subcontractors and everything. And so we pay them a fee, which is all spelled out in that proposal. And there's also like $300,000 or $400,000 in there for contingencies. But they've identified everything they have to do based on not having construction plans, to your point, based on construction plans that were done 15 years ago. So that $5.5 million also includes geotechnical work, all the engineering design, which is probably $300,000 to $400,000. So it was what we asked them for is a turnkey project cost to get there. So the $1 million in the master plan is stupid. It has no reality in today's dollars. And I don't know where it came from. It probably got carried over from 15 years ago and nobody ever updated it. So, and I do think we also need to, before we do the seawall, is to have a conversation and update the master plan for the marina for that particular part of the area. Find out what you guys want to do with the tiki bar and things like that. Craig and I, we had talked about, we got a price from the engineer or the architect that did the restaurant to upgrade the master plan for that area. It was $10,000, but at the time the town didn't want to move forward with it, wasn't. And so we could still do that, but I think both things need to be done. What I gave JHL was 2 lines on the paper, north south, and the line said, here's what we want to build using that drawing. So that's why it's very nebulous. And for people to say the $5.5 million number is bad is wrong, because it's actually a good number. It was a guaranteed maximum price number when we got it 2 years ago. And if we do it again, then they need to, if we're serious about it, then they can put their pencils to it, or you can put it out to bid or whatever you can do. But the geotechnical work, we can do it this fall or we can do it in spring. The water level is not going to come up over the winter. There's some permitting issues we need to work through to do bores below the wall. And so I don't know how complicated and how much time is going to be involved in that. We have to work with the Army Corps, and sometimes if we have to get an individual permit, it could take 3 months. And because a lot of the federal government agencies like the Army Corps have been greatly reduced in staff and everything, we might not get a permit for 6 to 9 months. So I'm just saying is that we're going to get a proposal to do geotechnical work, but whether or not we can physically do it and meet all our federal obligations, I have no idea. But I would start putting in your head a $5.5 million number. That's what it's going to cost. It's a huge undertaking. Plus, that doesn't include all the water and sewer utilities you guys perhaps want for a new tiki bar or whatever else you're trying to.
So that's not in there.
That's not in there because all I asked them to do, I said, here's the seawall plans we did. I drew 2 lines. I said, that's what we want. So the problem with this is it's so conceptual right now. I know we can put that in my next engineer report, the little drawing I did, but again, it's 2 lines on an aerial photograph with a length saying this is how much we want to build. But yeah, the $5.5 million I'm telling you today is a real number. It's not going to go away. I know that EDAC was up here saying we could get rid of $1 million in dewatering. We could probably get rid of some dewatering. It just depends. We never know how much water is stored in the hillside from the winter before. It changes every year. And to say that we can get rid of $1 million is just not right. So that's what you're looking at to do the seawall. And I think we just need to accept that. And if it's something you want to do, we'll figure out how to figure it out,
Well,
Yeah.
but part of it is, then I'd have to see a financial analysis. What's the return on investment down there? And how does it work? Is it so necessary that we must do it? you know, what is is it gonna collapse into the lake or what, are we stable enough it's going to hold?
It will.
Um,
We don't know when, but what's happening with the gabions that we have down there now is that it's just a metal mesh, like a chain link fence, and we put rocks behind it. And there's parts where the metal mesh is starting to unravel and there's holes in it. So, but there's other things we could do to potentially mediate it in the future. We could look at other systems. We wouldn't have to do the entire wall. But I think when I asked JHL for that proposal, I was like, here's what we want to do, and then we want to put a tiki bar on it, and you want to build buildings on it, and that's what we need to really study. But yeah, if we can find that other $10,000 to $20,000 to redo the master plan in that area, not for the restaurant, but just for the marina, that'd be really valuable. Because one of the things I talked about with Craig, you know, we plopped this fuel center right in the middle of this congested area, and one of the things we can do with the new seawall is maybe build a smaller and narrower building that could be the rental building. It could be the store and all that stuff, and put all that outside of that congested area with the fuel and stuff, and bring people down. So anyway, we have an idea for that, but we just haven't been able to hire the consultant to put together. So you guys think, so that's something I would ask you to consider, at least for next year's budget. So.
You had something, Scott?
I have a question. I
Okay.
think he was looking at me.
Okay, you're up.
So based on what you just said, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. It doesn't seem like there's a reason to push for it because it's a low water year. There's a reason it's going to cost $5.5 million. Doing it in a low water year, it doesn't seem like it's going to reduce it by enough that there's a reason to push for it. Is
Well,
that?
There's two issues. One is the geotechnical work. You know,
Yeah.
before we can do the design, we have to do the geotechnical work. So there's absolute reason to start on that. So we're getting a proposal. We'll bring that back to you. I asked them to do 10 bores, 5 above the wall and 5 below. I'm meeting with them tomorrow to go walk that, but they have to move dirt in order to get a drill rig down below the wall because it's like this and it needs to be like that. And so that's where I have to get a permit from the Army Corps, and perhaps they maybe say that's okay, but that wasn't the case with the boat ramp. So it's one of those things. But then the second part of that is the rest of that money goes into the design and the physical construction of it. And there isn't, and when we built it before, we built it in kind of normal water years. And so there was dewatering involved, but typically every year the water level goes down. They built that through the winter. I was really surprised everything worked, but we didn't have problems with frozen subgrade and stuff. So, and that's the thing that we have, the advantage we have is that the water level is down. But what happens during the summer when the water level is up to the top of the sheet metal walls is the water backs up into the hillside, right? You know, and then it takes it 6 to 9 months for it to drain out. And that's where the dewatering comes from. And so we never know during year to year from the day they start, how much water's in the hillside. Big snow year, we can have a lot of water stored up in the hill. But I think the point being is I think it's always good to move ideas forward by doing these small things, doing the geotechnical work. Then you can hire an engineer to do the engineering, and we can do that over a 5 to 10 year period. To Barb's point, you know, are we ever going to pay back the $5 million at the marina? Based on what we talked about, probably not. But you do that from a stewardship standpoint, and that's why government kind of exists to build those kind of facilities, like the amphitheater. You know, it's a money pit, but you put money into it so you have a facility, or the park, town park. It's a money pit. It doesn't make any money. We just put money into it. It's very nice, and people like it. So that's why we do stuff.
And I don't want to cut anyone off. And I appreciate the comment from Rachel, because we did talk about that. And I think that maybe as we're doing capital and working on those things, I think it is important that we are going to be getting a number for the geotech that we want to bring to you, because I think it is worthwhile. But maybe we could talk about the seawall, and is it the right project? Is it a necessary project? I think maybe we could have that conversation as we move through the budget. But I want to make sure that I'm giving Heather and Carrie the time to finish your discussion. Dan, thank you.
Yes, I want to support what Dan said about 5.5 million. Back in 2010, when we did the first seawall, the Gabion wall, that was $2.2 million to do that wall in 2010. So put that in perspective to today's numbers, and this is a different system.
But the same system is just wrong.
So put that in perspective, it's been. So it was 2.2 million back then, and we did. Which is the debt that you see now, trying to pay off.
You had 4 other questions, maybe
Yeah.
we ponder those and pick it up next session. Like, let us think about the questions, maybe, but present the 4 questions.
Well, are we? Marina profits, or do you want to move that one to the next discussion as well? I mean, I'm going to show these resolutions using these methods unless I have strong objection tonight. I'm going to bring these forward using this method.
I'm fine with you bringing it forward.
Anything you would like, okay. All right, and we'll bring these forward either, we'll see what August 4th looks like, whether we can talk about this again, or maybe we just do them all at the council retreat. So the last item, and I know we have just a couple minutes, was the council retreat. Can we come up with a date tonight or soon? Heather has suggested we send out the doodle poll. We've done those before. If we can't do it tonight, I gave you some dates, the 8th September, we're talking September 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 14th. So it's the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday after Labor Day, or that next Monday. We would have a council meeting on the 15th. So is there a date? We would propose to do it here and probably 9 to 4-ish. We'll provide lunch and spend the day.
So the idea is it's just a little bit different, and I think you probably explained this, but a different way of doing the budget this year, where I will move forward with the small funds. They're pretty easy to do, but that we'd reserve, excuse me, general fund, capital, and Dura and streets, and then we do it in a retreat. Give everyone on staff a little more time to be working on their budgets, and then do a budget retreat where we can kind of knock all of this out in one meeting.
I'm open, any of those.
Any of those dates work for you? Barbara, I think you
Same.
told me any of them work for
Any
you.
of them work for me.
I prefer the 8th.
You prefer the
Get real
8th?
specific.
So how far is the 8th past the council meeting?
It's the week after, it's the off week. So we have council meetings on September 1st and the 15th. It's that weird year where Labor Day is the very last day it possibly can be.
Yeah.
So September 1st is a Tuesday and the 15th. So we
Eighth
did
works
on
for
the
me.
8th or-
Eighth works for me.
That's fine.
Rachel or Josh?
I'd prefer like close to a council meeting. I may be out of town in between those off weeks.
I'm out of town that whole entire week following Labor Day.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
The entire week after.
So
Labor Day.
if
So could we, does the 14th work for you, Shannon? Yes? So could we do Monday, the 14th? Kyle,
Yes.
does that work for you?
For now,
Aren't you there?
yes, it does.
Okay, I will be coming into town for it. So Monday, 14th, and I'll send it out as an email so you can mark it out on your calendars. And Rachel, does that work for you? Are you back then?
Is that, so you're having, is it all day? I can make most of that day work.
Okay, yeah, we're thinking 9 to 4-ish. And if it would be better to start earlier and be done earlier, we could certainly do that too.
I mean, for me, it's just a work day for me, so.
But if you had to take breaks and go with work stuff, I would certainly would understand that.
so the 14th, 9 to 4.
Yeah, does that work? Does that seem to work for everyone? Great, thank you so much. I think we're excited as staff, we're excited in this process a little bit. I think this is gonna be a real positive. Oh, thank you very much.
And I want to thank you. This presentation was like outstanding. I mean, comprehension and retention for me on these issues is difficult, but I feel like I've gain confidence in what you're presenting and there's more reliability to the numbers. I thank both of you.
I sent you guys this earlier today. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I sent you my memo for the 2 weeks. And I also sent you, and I just want to pass this out. If you These are those budget guidelines. And I sent these to you in your email, but I'm also going to hand them out tonight. And I think we can keep developing on these. But I think these are ways when, if the public says to you, how do we not get into this again? You know, what can we do? You have a role in the budget, the town manager has a role in the budget, the finance team, the department heads. So in your role, what can you do? So to me, this is like a training opportunity to say, especially most of you are new that had to review this budget, you're new at this. So I think this document gives you maybe some thoughts and questions that you could have of staff as you're reviewing. Budget. I hope it's a document that might help you as you move forward.
Thanks to both of you, really. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
We'll move on to staff reports, town engineers report, Dan Burrows.
Contrary to my report, pickleball for today. So that is actually done. They put the post up. Starting to look like pickleball court. So a week from now, next week, they'll post tension the strands that are in the post tension concrete. And then over the next, I think it's about 3 weeks, they'll finish up the fencing and all that stuff. They have to wait. He told me they don't really do the fencing until 20 days after they pour. So it's kind of the schedule today. It's possible they could tighten the post tensioning sooner if the concrete strength's there, but they did a bunch of tests today. They did the whole thing today. It was pretty amazing to watch it done. So it's on its way. Any questions about that? The answer is working at it. So hopefully that's good. The tenderfoot overlay is out to bid. So we're gonna, the proposed project is to do the rest of Tenderfoot Street between Gold Run Circle and out towards the highway to the Golden Statue. We get that done this fall. So we'll have that contract to you in August at some point. Other than that, the Dillon Dam Road resurfacing, that's still on hold until the fall. Once I had lunch with some of the county engineers, the county engineer and the Silverthorne engineer yesterday. We coordinate every couple months and stuff. So Swan Mountain Road's going, and I won't say any kind of a deadline in this meeting, but it does mean that probably the 3rd or 4th week in September, we'll be able to do the dam road if that works with the contractor schedule. So, and that's just, we'll advertise a week-long closure, but that, as I think I said before, it's probably only about 2.5 days, a half day for milling and then a day of paving and then a half day for striking and stuff like that. So, but we always advertise it for a week just so people, in case we have bad weather and things like that. That's really kind of my simple update. So, anything else?
Can you do that without noise? No.
What's that? Oh, the noise? Well, you guys purchased a sound barrier for the pickleball court, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great job. They started setting up all the equipment at 5:30 this morning, and the concrete started coming at 7:30. So and it didn't rain, so we had a really good construction day. So,
Any questions for Dan? Thank you so much, Dan.
Yep, you bet.
We'll move on to senior planners report. Ned.
I'd like to start with a correction. When we were talking about the budget and the parking in lieu of fee came up, and I kind of off the top of my head tried to give an answer there. I did have an opportunity to quickly look at the code. And actually what we ultimately ended up doing was not going quite as far as what I said that we had thrown it out. What we did was we changed the parking requirement for restaurants in the town center, actually core area zone. It used to be, and it is for all other areas for restaurants, 1 parking space per 120 square feet of gross area. what we did was we changed it to one space per 400. So that was done as an incentive to see if we could get some interest in bringing in restaurants into the town center, because that cost to pay for parking spaces, if they can't provide it on their site, that's the purpose of that in lieu of fee. That was the idea there. So that's my correction, and I apologize for trying to be pulling stuff right off the top of my head. Real quick, we did have to, we were asked to postpone the public hearing for land use application for a PUD application up at 312 Dillon Ridge Road for the July 1st meeting. It is on schedule for the August 5th meeting. We will be sending out new legal notice tomorrow and posting the site and moving forward with. As you all know, it's dry. I did attend a QQ. That's quantity and quality water meeting with Northwest COG. And very interesting, but here locally even, we're now below 3 CFS in Straight Creek. So we're getting kind of to a near critical level. So just wanted to keep you all advised of that. Those are the highlights. If you'd like, I could dive in more, but any questions for me?
Can I ask one quick question? The ETA on the sales sign panel installation, production.
And they have not gone into final manufacturing yet, so I
Okay.
do not have an ETA.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We're much closer on the median sign panels that we're going to do for the wayfinding. So that'll be a big improvement kind of right away. So as soon as I have an ETA on that, I'll certainly let you know. Oh,
That was it. Thank you.
and as far as ETAs, I did have some updates as far as specifics for Nordstrom Rack. They're going to have a grand opening event on October 1st from 7 to 9 a.m. So they are planning to open prior to that, is my understanding. However, that's going to be their grand opening event. So they'll have more of a soft opening. 103 Main is on tonight's regular meeting. They did submit a request for an encroachment license to spruce up the face of that building. We talked about that at the last meeting. And finally, Waterview has completed the level 2 slab and level 2 and 3 columns, and they're preparing the shoring for the 3rd level decking. So moving along, they continue to be ahead of schedule. By the end of August, they hope to start the level 3 walls and also the level 4 deck. So it will start to come to shape pretty quickly. The walls are precast concrete panels, so they'll just be kind of basically tilting them up. So it's going to go pretty quick once they start doing that work.
Ned, I have a question on the 103 Main. I wasn't here for the,
Okay.
or didn't think, it looks like it's incomplete. I mean, there's some doors going out from the plans. Are the plans been submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
They have not been, no.
Okay.
It's all in its infancy. What they're trying to do is reprogram the building so that it fronts Lake Dillon Drive.
Well,
And to be able to do that, they are requesting access off of Lake Dillon Drive to build stairs up through the wall that is there and to also create some outdoor space.
yeah, well, that's what I was asking. Since they haven't submitted plans to the P and Z that, and I think everything should go to the P and Z, including the encroachment agreement, to see what they think of it before we give them a
Okay, well, because
encroachment.
it's not a new commercial building, it would not be reviewed by the planning commission. It's simply a commercial building remodel. So they're,
So they're just going to remodel it but, okay. So they can remodel it without going to planning and zoning?
that's correct.
Okay. All right, but there are some problems with that. I mean, they've got doors from the plans you showed us. They show doors going out onto the public space, which are town-owned property, without having any. They need more encroachment agreement, because on the backside of the building, they show doors going out to what is actually town property. And so I think, it's maybe a little bit premature to give them a encroachment agreement until we, until it, it looks like it.
Well, we can
thanks.
talk about that.
I think,
Later
yeah,
tonight.
yeah,
Sounds
we can do that, yeah. And maybe we can adjust it tonight or whatever. But, so as long as they don't need well, they do need permits from the county, but, as long as they don't need anything from P and Z, that makes a difference.
Yes, they do not. That's correct.
Yeah, and maybe do a little bit more wordsmithing on the resolution.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Any
way we
other-
Drafted it is we can make amendments to the agreement. And corrections, so long as it's not a substantiative change. So, if you're suggesting we need, an encroachment license area on the back of the building because of the existing door that is there that does just go out into town
Yeah.
property, then, we could look at that.
Yeah, because they're showing that there's some type of entrance or something like that from the sidewalk on the plans, but but they need to get the encroachment agreement on that.
So Mr. Rotano, that's an agenda item in the regular meeting.
Yeah.
Could we talk about it at that time?
Well, it's something, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Any other?
I was thinking of taking it off the agenda until we got it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ned? Thank you, Ned.
Thank
We'll move the council meeting agenda review to end of the regular meeting, if that's okay, or do you want?
No,
to-
we need to talk about the agenda before, the agenda review before the regular meeting. It
Okay.
just take 2 minutes. So
Okay.
for this evening, council will be considering an appointment to the EDAC committee. There is also a resolution for the 2026 EV parking lot project. There is a resolution for the implementation of the Dillon Energy Action Plan. There is an ordinance for building code amendments, secondary codes adopted by Summit County. And there is also a resolution for the encroachment license agreement for 103 Main. Does council have any questions, and are there any changes to the agenda?
I don't have any. Defer to everyone else.
He answered some of my questions. I will go forward with it.
Okay.
Is there anything else, Scott, you want to review? Okay, so we'll end the work session and start the regular meeting 7:05, if that works for everybody. Thank you, everybody.